What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tanker, and welcome to a new version of Axis and Allies 1951. This is Axis and Allies 1951 Europe. This is being played on the Operation Unthinkable map created by Historical Board Gaming. This version of the game is going to be a little bit more, not so much in depth, but again, it's only going to be focused on the European side of the war that takes place in Harry Turtledove's The Hot War series. So the main combatants are, you have the Soviet Union, you have NATO, and you have the United States. And obviously the catalyst, again, for this war is that the United States uses nukes against China, which brings about a Soviet response in Europe. So, quickly I'll go over that. So, the U.S. uses nukes in Manchuria to stop the Chinese from getting into Korea. In response, the Soviet Union uses nukes in the West German zones. They bomb parts of France. And then they also bomb part of the United Kingdom. In response to that, the United States nukes Soviet airfields up here in Murmansk, which I don't have on this board. I might add those. But the Soviets they nuke Soviet air bases here in Murmansk that they used to get their bombers sort of down in here. In retaliation for that, the Soviets use nuclear weapons against Alaska, which then prompts the U.S. to once again use nukes against Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Eastern Poland. And basically 2 days after the U.S. drops these nukes, the Soviets begin the invasion of Western Europe. And so that is where this game starts now. You'll notice that there are damaged facilities in Western Europe. These facilities will start out damaged because of the nuclear attacks. The airfield here in Berlin is max damage just because there's fighting within Berlin between the Soviet East Berlin forces and the Allied West Berlin forces. So that is why this airfield will be max damaged. And then here in Hungary on this map is the only place of these three that has any facilities. So the factory will start out max damaged. Other things about this map, there are no major or minor factories. Kind of like some of the older Axis and Allies games. Whatever the territory value is what you can build out of the factory. So here in Romania, the Soviets can only build three units out of Romania. Up in Poland, they can build 3. Moscow, they can build 6, and so on and so forth. Other things. All right. So, normally in Operation Unthinkable, the Allies are more or less just one team, and they mainly deploy out of they can deploy out of London, and they don't abide by the territorial value of London, which is I believe 10. This is going to be a little bit different this time around. So, there is no unlimited deployment numbers for London or Moscow like in Operation Unthinkable. They are beholden to the territorial values. The U.S. as a separate player has a deployment queue where they will place their purchases. And then on the next turn, they can deploy those forces within Europe, mainly by transports and air transports. And they would just go 1, 2, or 1, 2, or 1, and so on. Unlike Operation Unthinkable, where all naval units get to move 3 spaces, plus 1 for a naval base, it's going back to Axis and Allies, where all naval units move 2 spaces, plus 1 if there's a non-damaged naval base that's part of it. Let's see here. Other key rules outside of that. there are some other differences between what I'm doing with this and with Operation Unthinkable. Let's see here. What else is there? Some of it involves the units. So in this game, I am allowing for, you can't really see it, but that's an airborne. So airborne troops and Marines can be used in this game, unlike in Operation Unthinkable. The U.S. can also use B-47 jet bombers. They can purchase those if they want to. Nuclear weapons can be purchased, but the U.S. will start out with 3 atomic weapons, and the Soviets will start out with 2. Atomic weapons are going to be worth 25 in this game. And then for the U.S., so for the game, strategic bombers are, because there's way more IPC that each team starts out with, like the Soviets start out with almost 90, NATO starts with just a little bit above 90, the U.S. starts with 48, but because of the higher IPC value, I'm going off of the Operation Unthinkable purchase costs for all the units. And so strategic bombers are worth 20 in this game. The US B-47 is going to be worth 22 for this game. So we'll see how that plays out for this. But so, other than that, what we got here is we got our turn marker. So this game, because it's more small scale, it'll actually follow the war monthly. In the book series, the war goes from February 1951 to really June 1952, but July is there just to add as an extra turn. So what will happen on turn 1 is the Soviets will roll a dice to see if they can get either strategic or tactical surprise against their allies, and you can see what happens there. This game will involve initiative just about every turn, except for either the first 2 or the first 3, where the Soviets will go first. And then starting in May 1951, 2 dice will be rolled, and whoever gets the higher result gets to go first for that turn. Another thing different from Operation Unthinkable. So in Operation Unthinkable, how the turn goes really is you do, there's usually a timeline event. Then you have your random events, which I have a whole thing of random events here. I'll give that a second. So if you want to pause and read some of those, you can. Oh, sorry. Then you do your purchases and repairs. Then you do your initiative roll. And then basically whoever wins initiative will do combat, their combat moves, conduct combat, non-combats, which involve just regular. There's regular non-combat moves. There's sea lift that the Allies can do, which is taking units. They can take a certain amount of units from different naval bases and transport them to Allied-controlled naval bases. There's rail, which is basically like you could take this infantry from Normandy and rail it to West Germany, but you can't rail beyond. You can't rail beyond. And that's the same with the Russians. Russians do not get naval movements. However, one thing I am adding is a strategic airlift, which will allow units to go from, which will allow infantry, artillery, and anti-aircraft guns to go from airfield to airfield if it's not damaged. I think, what was it? Okay. So I am going to use the Operation Unthinkable. So for rail movement, the Allies can move 4 units over land. The Soviets can move 7. Strategic sea lift, the Allies can move 4. The Soviets can't do anything with sea lift. For airlift, the U.S. and NATO can move. Both sides can move 4 units. So the U.S. and NATO can move 4 units, and the Russians can move 4 units by air as well across the map. Nukes are going to work pretty much the same. If a nuke is dropped, you'll roll a dice. On a 1 or 2, 2 land units are destroyed, and if there's a factory, that is max damaged. So double whatever the territory is worth, and then the territory is reduced by half its value. So like say if a nuke went off in Yugoslavia, it would now be worth 2 because you round up. Well, you take 3, divide by 2, you get 1.5. You round down to 1, so 3 minus 1 is 2, so then it'd be worth 2 for the rest of the game. That will not affect the territories that are currently nuked right now. And then that's pretty much how that goes. In this game, there are still neutrals, so you have Finland, Sweden, Spain, Libya is neutral, Egypt is neutral, and then Syria, Iraq, and Iran are also neutral. You can attack Turkey, Greece, and Portugal are a part of NATO in this fight. Gibraltar is obviously owned by the Brits. You can attack the neutrals. They will have defensive armies that you'll have to fight through if you want to take them. And then any subsequent attacks that you make, the neutral defensive values. Well, I haven't really worked out what I'll do with that yet. I think I'll just use what Operation Unthinkable has for the defensive armies for Finland, Sweden, and Spain. And then I'll just have to come up with something for places like Yugoslavia and such. Like Yugoslavia, Libya, Egypt, and that. So I hope to get started pretty soon here. I think I've explained just about everything. I'll make other notes if I can if I remember anything. But so yeah, like I said, I hope to get started soon, and I hope you guys will follow along. So until then, guys, as always, take care.